Chile here with Sirius Talisman. This is Venus hour, and this is Jupiter night. So, Venus is 23 degrees Capricorn, and the ascendant has ingressed to Mula Nakshatra, 21 degrees Sagittarius moon, 7 degrees Scorpio, accentuating the Mars-Sun conjunction that is separating from opposition to Jupiter. Mercury is applying to oppose Jupiter, and Venus is ruling the midheaven at 6 degrees Libra. Now, I want to talk about why are cults exposed in the age of air, which of course already answered the question. Pluto in Aquarius. Now, if I go back to Pluto ingressing into Libra, which was the end of the 60s, beginning of the 70s, Pluto ingressed into the air sign of Libra, airing out power dynamics in relationships. That was the age of prenuptials. That was the age of the beginning of litigation for violence within marriage. That was the time where, between the 70s and the mid 80s, and I have Pluto 0 degree Scorpio, we would have the first laws against sexual harassment at work. And the biggest divorce rates because people could divorce because people could divorce. Um, and so the inner dynamics of intimacy, union, relations, and even the question of rape in marriage, which began to be an offense, were all put to the air. They were all brought to the light of day, or on air, and basically addressed, and the powers shifted. Okay, so much so that when Uranus went through Taurus, we had both ladies having to reconnect with their femininity, only to find out that the men around them have been pre-red pill in advance, so they wouldn't get the promised intimate connection if they really are doing something other than, I guess, being a relationship coach. In Israel, we even had a relationship coach murdered by a cop that was a husband. So, yes, and she, like I said, Israel is losing its opportunity for growth and being a cultural center. It doesn't mean it can't regain it, but I already addressed what it needs to do to regain it. Pluto in the age of Aquarius is less about femininity per se, and more about even Pluto itself receiving an exposure. Because Aquarius is the science of. Aquarius looks to the history and looks to the future and adjoins the two. Okay, in Aquarius we ask, what if Hitler had a different history teacher? I have Solar here that is Aquarius ascendant. And the first thing I saw was all this food from Assyrian cuisine. And so Saturn is in Pisces, which would be second house to Aquarius ascendant, and second house rules food. So I see historical food and historical cuisine. By the way, also when Pluto ingressed ingressed into Aquarius, I saw this, and it also looks way into the future. Okay, for example, China living in the 2050, very much algorithm for Pluto in Aquarius. The Singapore, almost space cities, very much fit. Okay, Norwegian cashless society, um, very much fit for the Aquarian themes, because it conjoins both in a unique way. If Capricorn looks to the past, Aquarius transcends the past and looks to the future, and have the future transcending the past, and things from history having a renaissance transcending supposed future timelines. It's the play with time. Now, everything and anything is on air. And Aquarius also rules community and humanity at large. The symbol or the constellation is, I know the constellation is, of course, sidereal, but the association with Aquarius is the water bearer, and indeed we have a lot of water water related architecture. The exposure that we have historical buildings that can gather the rainwater, filter them, and support water to the community. And why can't we actually do that today? Oh, that exposes something on air, like the chemtrails, because then we would have to know what we filter. And if we did, they say the Jews got Shilumim. What about us? By the way, my grandfather did not get Shilumim. Um, so, but this is the exact reason why anything hidden regarding communities, particularly of humanity at large, is on air. For example, something that is so casual as, yes, the Bolshevik Revolution was funded by the same company that created the petrodollar, which is Standard Oil. Okay, it was the same schools and different economic traditions. One was fit to one place, another to another. Both collapsed because of extortion calls. We saw the fall of Soviet Union, and now we see something that looks like a decline of United States, but in fact isn't, because they do pose a challenge to the rare earth mineral monopoly by China. It just doesn't show yet because the fall of the petrodollar is the fall of the extortion codes linked with the petrodollar, and that's why we see ISIS. And people that have great ideas that could support humanity very well, forced into a collapse of paradigms like people sell their freedom for food when they cause famine. Um, and and declaring empathy as sin. It is. So, shout out to Park Rose Permaculture for addressing that. Um, of course, the upbringing in extortion cults is beyond horrific. It's kind of like a Holocaust, but the one that they don't speak about, and all done in three dimensions. So it's kind of like the people that nobody thinks that they are excluded from society, um, and um, and I guess in a lot of my episodes, I try to um, bridge the gap and open the door to exit that violence, which is the violence of extortion calls, that's done to the elite by the elite, and of course the expendable children are the BIPOC children, and so all of that is true. Um, but um, but the understanding that of how close and isolated was that society, and um, and the awareness that that can be done to entire humanity. Okay, that can be done to entire humanity, and I guess because I'm third generation to Holocaust survivor, I have this more accessible, that for me it was like, yes, they grew up, but like in the Holocaust they did that. They forced people to rape, and the things that Annika Lucas is talking about, um, and um, and that being an incredibly intricate issue, because at time of self defense one has to self defend. Um, and if we are to open the door to not making empathy a sin, um, it's also important to shed light on the world where empathy was a sin. Those very hidden things are not just Aries in Aries, but they're also Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto in Aquarius is all the hidden knowledge that was. Yes, I don't think that the Soviets fought the American, yes, capitalists. The people that fought, I don't think they necessarily knew that they are that they are both funded from the same oil company, and if they did, um, they probably did not lay such a big emphasis on that, because had they, then or they were completely full-blown extortion cults fighting one another. But in the age of air, nothing is hidden. And all the attempts to control the air, okay, because Pluto is also what we attempt to control. Pluto in Libra, people, there was attempt to control relationships, there was attempt to control marriage. That was leading to a complete exposure of what's happening within marriage. Yes, Pluto Scorpio, my generation between 1983-4 to 1995-6, it was, yes, this was, in fact, the ingress of Pluto to Sagittarius would be the Detrudocires. So, and to prepare for that, we had to prepare in advance that child marriages is not cool, which means we had to delve into the deep psychosexual problems of humanity. Yes, if anybody needs to bite on a slice of lemon to ease the nausea. But what do you think child marriage was? Is if you understand that child marriage equals what happened in the true case, then we understand what was humanity just complacent with before the modern times of Pluto in Scorpio. We can swipe it under the rug all we can, but we can't really. An old man marrying a 12 years old girl, that was the Detrudocires. And of course, the girls that didn't want to marry or that resisted would go through the same thing. It's one and the same. Shows us how global that cult was. Um, yes, Pluto Aquarius is the onset, is the square to the Pluto Scorpios. Basically showing that the whole world was operating like an extortion cult. And now it's being exposed on a global level. So, why do cults get persecuted during Pluto and Aquarius times? It's because that which was hidden community or secret society is now on air. Um, but it's not just the global secret societies. It's entire humanity secret societies also mean the entirety of the local secret societies is being exposed. And with sextile to Neptune, colonialism o'clock is going to look quite interesting now. Let's do a little research to see when was Neptune in Aries last time, which was colonialism o'clock, and what was its relation to Pluto. So this was 1861 to 1875, American Civil War, abolition of slavery, rise of Impressionism in art. Now, Impressionism is basically the painting of not the way something looks, but the way something feels, which exposed a lot of basically the psychological effect of extortion cults. I had almost telepathic conversation about that. I really wish that these people can speak because I think we are missing so much. We think that all of these business people, politicians, always see them as extorted people, extorting people. And while in those extortion calls it's true, okay, they have so much more to say than that. And whether it's about the arts, whether it's about the connections between or the rituals to the artistic expression, I could show you art of a lady that was ritually abused, and it looks like Impressionism. This is basically oh, mishap by me. Painting. Her name is Hani Bikol, and she was growing within extortion cults, ritualized, organized ritualized violence, and we can see some of her paintings. As you can see, the texts are no less horrid. And if that reminds us of Impressionism, then, for example, child slavery, sex trafficking, this is testimony. More of her style.
As
so that's basically the artwork of people that were going through those ritual abuse ceremonies, and the artistic expression of a woman that grew up in such society but managed somehow to escape. She, by the way, describes being betrayed by both the juristic system, the welfare system, the medical system, going through years and years. And yes, so the more people are able to see what that thing is, and I know, okay, that people in there are also that they are the artists and the creators and the even when they play a role, let's say, in politics and so on and so forth. Radical ideological shifts, struggle for freedom, visionary breakthroughs, idealism. Past cycles were also between the 1500s and late 1600s, coincided with the Renaissance. So if we go to the relations between Pluto and Neptune, let's see if we can go to the relations. Let's have a midway into that. The slow-moving planets, so let's say we talk about 1800s for manual input. Let's put, what was it? I think it was 8080. I think it was Pluto-Neptune conjunction, but let's say 1870. January 1870. And the relations between Pluto and Neptune. Yes, Neptune was in Aries, Pluto was in Taurus. And indeed, we had the fight for women being in education, in academia, with Pluto in Taurus. Right now we have Uranus in Taurus, but Pluto in Aquarius. So that's something. Let's go to the 1500s. And say normal day at the 1500s. Yes, click for manual input. My manual input, please. Something. No, not 900. Oh, so let's say 1550. And this is what I wanted to check with Leonardo da Vinci in the church. Pluto and Aquarius, Neptune. Oh, they almost sextile. This is strange. They don't sextile yet. What I get is, oh, they probably are going from the, let's see, 1500. Maybe it was just switching from the sextile to, from the square to the sextile, I don't know. Pluto squared Uranus in the 1500s, which we had during the Metu, for example. It was Jupiter-Uranus square Pluto, definitely an onset. Jupiter-Uranus is innovation. We had Jupiter-Uranus in Taurus, and that's completely technological innovation that we see usually in after years. And Steve Jobs, for example, had, I think, Jupiter-Uranus, and he made Apple. So we have Jupiter-Uranus squaring Pluto, can definitely be an onset of the Renaissance, because it was a revolution in belief, philosophy, and here technology, squaring Pluto in Scorpio, and Pluto and Neptune were not in contact. And the person that began to make the connections between channeling and applied science was Leonardo da Vinci. And he known for being the first empiricist. Philosopher of science. Yes, my hidden hat comes to the air. I wasn't hiding me being philosopher of science. It's just that's how, you know, when you're doing manifestation and astrology videos, is less relevant. But we see also I have Pluto in my 12th house, and what I bring to the table is my powerhouse is philosophy of science, and this is how I got to be an astrologer, by the way. I wasn't satisfied with the prediction of science, and I saw that astrology predicts scientific revolutions better than most philosophers of science. So the late 1990s, Larry Loudon did predict the role of technology in making a controversial science basically acceptable. But there's another role here, and this is the role of the hidden politics and the taboos in society, namely extortion cults in our modern times, that is required to be exposed in order for us to understand the full picture of the sciences. And a lot of what we call revolutionary science is basically the removing of those taboos that unveils the science that was hidden within or hidden underneath. A little bit of a meta moment was that I was like, yes, as a philosopher of science, people are like, oh. So people that don't know me for several decades don't know that about me. And apparently there were also people that knew me for a decade and chose, I don't know if they chose extortion cults over development of humanity. to hold a position in academia. So I knew from very young age that I'm closer to the encyclopedists, and these are the people that documented knowledge. And I actually am, with this astrology, kind of an encyclopedist. And indeed, for the fact that it's done as charitable work, simply because I did not find a currency. And those are other things that are happening. Like, oh, it just happened. let's go back in the days even more, with the lovely aid of AI. And this AI is going through over a lot of astrology sites that are out there. And yes, by the way, the reason I did not agree to join a social media of astrology that takes all the data into AI is because I knew that that AI would be traded, but people would not be compensated. Okay, not because I don't support the charitable sharing of knowledge. It's just that we have to be accommodated also in terms of our housing, food, and so on and so forth. So this is something, I guess, to be clear about. I'm all for people sharing knowledge freely, but we have to also make sure that we have housing independent of ability to work, food, and all of that can be very sustainable. Even when we go to space, okay, we want to take with us to space the preservation of the amaranths and the historical food that served people for generation, and grow that one, rather than deprive humanity of food, supposedly in favor of learning how to get along in space. My opinion. And we had the 1600s to 1712. So let's do 1700 and check historical relations of Neptune. And so if I go back to 1700, this shows me how unique is this colonialism clock. Because all of these eras, whether it was the Renaissance, or yes, the age of empires that later created the American, yes, first of all, American Revolution and then American Civil War. American Revolution was Pluto in Capricorn, but the Civil War was Pluto in Aquarius, and it was basically an onset that was a part of Neptune, Aries, and the colonialism clock. And here we have Neptune Neptune and Pluto separate from the trine. So with this colonialism clock, we're going to have Neptune sextile Pluto almost throughout the entire 15 years, which is going to build up to the square. It's a unique form of colonialism clock. It's a colonialism that really is going to extinguish the cults within every society. Um, and as a dualistic form, that Neptune is always dualistic. We know that colonialism clock was also the spring of nations. We cannot talk about colonialism without talking about the spring of nations at the aftermath of the colonialism, what comes after, which is the decolonization, and this is the spring of sovereignty. And so we have conversations about the map of United States as First Nations. There's nothing that says more Aries, Neptune than First Nation. With the Diné occupying vast land all the way from North America to North United States to Canada to Alaska, which is US, Canada, US. And so we're going to be having a very weird type of colonialism because the First Nations are probably going to definitely be a part of. And yet this means as anything rises, also the Pluto stuff come to the surface, and it's going to be a dualistic way of both global cults unite and the global war waging against global cults, but also local cults. Um, so we basically, in this millennia, did not have the type of Neptune in Aries that we have, um, that we already delved a little bit into, and we're going to delve since February 14. We're going to delve even more into. It's a Neptune sextile Pluto, which means both perhaps globalists' attempt to colonize humanity, juxtaposed to worldwide attempts to diverge from globalism. For example, if I take it as an individual, I have Mercury in Aries. Neptune will only arrive there at, I think, 15 years. But of course, I want to preserve the ability to have connection, social media, trade relations, whether it's ordering a talisman or um, earrings or whatnot from a First Nation person, Inuit, yes, Shina Nova, for example, in living in, I think they live in Alaska, in the Arctic. So, yes, unabashed shout out to Inuit people. And um, and I want to preserve that. And of course, I understand the importance of local trade, local communities. Shout out to another Shina, and this is, I need to find this channel now. Midway into watching this lady that has a promise for people that don't fit corporation or structure to be able to make a living. And no, she's not talking sex trafficking. She's talking about making a living from our own passion. So um, uh, still giving that one a chance. And this is Shaina Conde. So she's talking about the power of community and the power of the BIPOC community in the face of ICE before it got Minnesota. And I give a lot of shout outs to Parkworth Permaculture. I do want you to listen to Shaina Conte because BIPOC community had to live through survival. They had to live through not knowing which of their neighbors is ICE. They had to live through learning to identify people. They had to live through learning to manage as introverts in a society where knowing the neighbors and saying hi to the neighbors is actually important. Okay, it is. When I first moved from the city to basically a more rural city, I was getting the city girl stereotype a lot. Then I was getting the village girl stereotype, but this says, or when I remember when I moved to Arad, I was living alone in an apartment. I had to educate an entire village not to ask a woman if she's alone. it is. That was okay, and most of them were just nice people. Some of them were not. A lot of them were just nice people. Not really getting, father is asking the question, and I'm like, and would you let another man ask your daughter if she moved in when she's a student, and so on and so forth. So in many cases, it's just lack of awareness. But that was a thing. And knowing our neighbors, so when I had to escape a place before COVID, then there was a neighbor that was really assisting me, okay, with the things. If they were tortured into, I don't know, targeted individuals or not, I don't know. But I also don't forget when they were helpful and so on and so forth. Those things are really, really important. We have in our region in Beersheba, people found dead that are when already the smell of their bodies, which takes several weeks and months, came out of the apartments, and that's unusual. That's only happening in crime cities. Even a lot of people had ideation of organized crime, saying they don't harm women and so on and so forth. I don't understand why don't we gather as a community if there's a lady that, I say working lady out of respect, but we all know that there's trafficking. How come she doesn't have housing independent of ability to work? Why can't we as a community, as a rural community, people even somewhat religious, why can't they manage to have her having a home where she doesn't have to be raped for a living? And the people buy her sometimes food and so on and so forth, but it's like, and it's obvious from the way that she asks, it's obvious, almost like a girl that asks mommy to buy her something. And that shows me that it's very likely something that was played on that. Again, I don't think she has like a pimp or anything like that. I don't know. But she doesn't have a bodyguard either, and so I just think about it. That's look like a city that could be bombed tomorrow, and who's gonna know? Like, in fact, when there was 7th of October, there were people were called shabachim, which basically, I don't know what is shabachim. It's like infiltrators, that were living in one of the apartments in the neighborhood. Now, in such society where a person could go, if there is a lady that people can think that she's a working lady, and I have to admit, as half Dutch, it wasn't that we had stigma against working ladies, it's that it was so normalized that we didn't even think that it was trafficking. This is what I know, okay? It's from circles around me, and other people may have stigma, but it's just that we didn't even think it was human trafficking, and then it was legalized to supposedly prevent crime, but it falls flat. Like, if I caught a woman that was trying to traffic from having to work as a ticket checker, and the people that are basically policing forces in Amsterdam, then the company was called the Bink. It's not the jewelry company. It's the other, the Bink. And using public transportation as a threat, because she tried to get me into her apartment, and using that as a threat that if I'll travel black, but all Dutch travel black. It's just so expensive, and I guess they don't make enough money for the public train. So, by the way, if you're homeless and you're in the Netherlands, then you have rights to write off those things, but be careful when you turn to the authorities because they try to traffic sometimes. For example, I did not manage to settle that issue because I escaped trafficking there, even by the person who was supposed to help. Then that was a big issue. So now we see how important is community, and this is why I said listen to Shaina Conde as well, because she saw that in the community before it got white. So and everybody knew it's going to get to the rest of the society. For example, if you have one working lady here, they don't intend to keep it one working lady. And if the community does nothing, then they should not complain when entire city is bombed. Okay, that's. I tried several times. I was severely targeted. Tried to turn to the organization that's supposed to help, and so on and so forth. I was severely targeted, and I had to. And it was several times that I tried. So each time I had to recover, and I still see it because it's and when you see that, even if she asks, let's say, somebody to buy her something, it's all very like, it's almost like she needs mothering, like, not because she's not sovereign, but because there's something missing, and that missing thing became not just mothering but also home that is not rapey. And if we don't have this in society, then home, housing, nation, people, those are all the moon. And hospitality. So, and I urge you as communities, if you see those things, make sure these people have, as community, make sure these people have homes. Because this is, first of all, because it's the human thing to do. Secondly, those things are the beginning, they're the cornerstone of something. And those people that agree to just look away, later, they suffer a lot. And if one person tries to help, often the trust that was already breached cannot be so easily gapped. But when community tries to help and doesn't give up and doesn't listen to the authorities but listen to the person, because the authorities, they traffic these people again. And you saw for yourself the impressionist art of the people that had to withstand that alone. So yes, we're going to see with Pluto and Aquarius, everything secret regarding the community begins to bubble, begins to rise to the surface, and it's going to be a colonialism o'clock that we haven't seen this millennia. At least not this half millennia. Which means Pluto is going to sextile Neptune as Neptune goes through Aries. And this is where it's going to be very transparent. For example, Trump was incredibly transparent about his wish to buy Greenland, literally calling it the more humane option, or the more gentle option, or something like that. Okay, that's, and he is a Gemini, which is a sign of air. He was being very transparent about his intentions, good or bad. Okay, it's kind of like we're gonna know, and about his both business. Even if you talk about the security of the United States here or there, everybody know they're looting the minerals. Okay, and that is something that the people that go to war, if they go to war, should take into account, because when they're going to be told that they're in debt because of the war, ask, what about the minerals? But if the women that had to protect society from these trafficking cults and extortion cults are going to be told that their human rights are not first on the list, then you're going to have to ask, what about the minerals? It's much better to have wealth distribution that is equal and sovereign than to try to argue. I saw a video about the tradwife ideal broken, which is the way men that married a woman, stay-at-home woman, and probably it was very important to them that the woman would be a stay-at-home woman, begin to abuse these women. Upon divorce, women get nothing, and many of them wear a cross, which is abomination to me, but not to the church that declared empathy as sin. And this too, if we think about Neptune as very associated with the church, okay, the mythical Christianity. Neptune is to do with the sacrifice, myth of sacrifice, the ideation and divulgation regarding sacrifice, and thus the Christian principle of sacrifice is very associated with Neptune. And when we see basically Neptune sextiles Pluto and the church calling empathy a sin, we see we see the Antichrist within the Christ. I don't know if it's Neptune at the end of Pisces. Like, as an astrologer, it's like sometimes it's just stupid. Like, I don't always have a planetary delineation for that stupidity, and so so that's just the church downright telling us that they're demonic. Um, while the demons grant more sovereignty sometimes, and yes. So when these men turn into mass graves at the war that are anonymous graves, like the Great War, Falken, okay? I was in Europe. In Europe, we see, in Europe, the Great War is not the Second World War. What we call the Great War is the First World War. And this is where we see the anonymous graves, masses upon masses of graves. So when these men that are, you get nothing, you do the laundry or spill water on you or this or that, when they turn into an anonymous grave, nobody would be grieving. This is how they get men to go to war. You treat the woman that had your babies that way. Nobody's gonna say, "Oh, you're a father. You don't have to go to the front. You're a new father. Help a woman take care of your children." In Israel, how do they evade IDF? They make babies. Feynman worked at Los Alamos, but even then he had to convince the psychiatrist that he's cuckoo to go to go off the frontier, and he just addressed the science of psychiatry, so that guy psychiatrically tagged him. Then he stayed. So, that was Feynman's trick to evade the war, and he was working in Los Alamos. But just know the fact that he was working in Los Alamos, he still got recruited. He still had to see a cuckoo doctor to tell him that he's cuckoo and get cuckoo certificate to, even as a person that worked at Los Alamos. So the only way out is treat your woman right and have a baby. Like the really only way out. Napoleon, like I said, I gave the shout out in the previous episode, was basically depriving women of their rights when they're mothers to anything from the man. The man could divorce them, they could not divorce the man. And what happened? The man said, I don't need it. I'm not the father of the baby. I'm not the father of the baby. Amazing, fantastic. So go to war then. It is. Now the women, they have already been at war. They were raped by their husband. They already hold PTSD. They lived in imprisonment situations with their husbands. They had to escape even people that were not husbands or boyfriends. So they were in duty in times of peace. Um, so, and again, it's only when they manage to turn men and women against each other, because that's and you know what? It's regardless of gay or straight. When a gay couple needs to do co-parenting, they need some. When two gay men needs to do co-parenting, they need a gay woman in the and to do just to hire a womb, let's say, 9 times out of 10 is trauma and trafficking. And I know because I know the case of the woman that wasn't. I met a woman that wasn't and was trying to, and it wasn't working. And we saw the reason, and she even began to say, maybe I should do it for the money, so that it would work. And I said, so you see, don't do this for the money. And that was a real authentic case where she had a daughter and she wanted to give birth to another mom, but because of those times, at least back then, it was not working. And if that was before 7th October, by the way. So sometimes the case that is outside of the group tells us about the group. Um, and again, there would always be those cases where let's say it was different and so on. But I saw even when rich couples take a woman to have their children, she's usually awfully mistreated. And this is, yes, to the point of stealing wombs, which is beyond, but those are the horrors. Um, even when couples do, yes, IVF, they're not always told, they could simply told her, yeah, that was not success. Yeah, we had one or two out of so-and-so that we did, and the rest of them are basically unregistered births. So that's something that to take into considerations. Yes, I know that there are a lot of people going through these stories, and I know that this is a whole lot of a lot. And I'm being silent until we have gender reveal parties. But of course, those are very intricate issues. And many people, or women, like myself, need to attune to their own inner child before they can be moms, even though they're 41. So I had made the choice that as far as it is in my hands, I will heal myself first before becoming mom. And that so far proved to be a good choice. It is. That probably saved both my life and supposed infant life, because in situations that I was in situations that it would be more humane if I would be mother to kill the baby and myself than to go through those situations. And if I, as a single woman, has been at that time that is childless, has been through that, then people that go through that as young mothers, that was not in their hands to heal or not to heal, I don't wish upon my enemies to understand what are the circumstances in which it is more humane to kill a baby. And I don't mean about postpartum depression even. I don't even go there. Like, so yeah. Now, more things about these exposures and Pluto in Aquarius. It is going to be a type of colonialism that we did not see before. So, and then we're going to be separating from the sextile of Neptune and Pluto, which tells me that, first of all, if there's going to be a colonialism o'clock, what was achieved could be breaking apart sooner than we think, whether it's good or bad. Okay, it is important. Simply because we're going from an agreement into a disagreement. So sometimes disagreement is good and sometimes disagreement is bad. And sometimes agreement is good and sometimes agreement is bad. But whatever it will be, we are going to be, like I said, it's not another century of Gladio. And so we're going to be going through a tremendous transformation on a global level, whether it's about diverging from globalism, or the point of this transit, I think, is to assert the balance between community and the individual on a level of sovereignty. Now, because both are, and we're going to see the yin aspects of Saturn as well, but air is yang element. So yes, this is quite a masculine thing. It doesn't mean that it will not include women. It's just that women will be more sovereign. Okay, it means that it's not a feminist per se. It's a sovereignty that forces women to sovereign up. What do I mean by that? Is that because it's going to be about individual rights, bless you. If I give the example of the men that were so red-pilled by the church, okay, they were wearing a cross, and you can replace church with any religion. And they were so red-pilled that they began to wake their women up at night for them to do their laundry and like arsenic on that necktie and have him take a deep breath. Yes, so good you didn't hear the joke. So good you didn't hear the joke. I'm recording at 5:37. So, yeah, recording. So this is an example of how, one way or another, okay, this type of man that leave the woman with the baby that they insisted on her having without working, and then tell her, no, you get nothing, the baby gets nothing, everybody gets nothing. They become anonymous graves, but it forces women to sovereign up, because these women will need to feed the baby, and any decision that at first maybe was personal, maybe they were going to the same church as the husband, and that husband, they were the submissive wife or whatnot, And usually in the beginning they do get along well, and then they saw that that reality of the trad wife is